They thought I was done for, that losing my job meant losing my worth. What they didn't realize was that I was about to become the headline they couldn't ignore. Family dinners at the Barrett estate in Scottsdale had always been more performance than tradition. A polished stage for Ivy League degrees, six-figure bonuses, and real estate flexes. My name is Marcus Delaney. I'm 41 now. 2 months ago, I was lead systems engineer at Virion Dynamics, one of the fastest-growing AI firms in the Southwest. Today, I was the family embarrassment. The cautionary tale everyone politely avoided while trading career wins over imported rose. Did you hear about Marcus? Poor guy. Guess not everyone's cut out for tech. I stood by the stone fountain near the guest house, listening to my cousin Chloe brag about closing a 10-property deal and her twin brother Reed drone on about fintech disruption. Everyone loved a disruptor. Unless he wore a quiet smile and wrote code instead of press releases. Marcus, Reed called across the patio with a smirk. We were just talking about career resets. You in? He couldn't resist the dig, and I didn't mind, because while Reed played investor and Chloe chased sales commissions, I had spent the last year quietly building something far more powerful and dangerous. How's job hunting? Chloe asked, swirling her wine. I checked my phone. 6:03 p.m. Mountain Time. Right about now, Virion's internal systems were waking up to the hidden release I'd buried deep in the code base, a data transparency protocol that regulators, journalists, and whistleblowers would eat alive. You know, Reed said, real success is about vision. I smiled. Exactly, and the world was about to see mine in every headline. Let them laugh. The code was already running. All eyes turned, waiting for the so-called family failure to crack. I glanced at my phone again. 6:04 p.m. Let me tell you what really happened at Virion Dynamics. 4 years ago, I started a personal project. Not some flashy app or fintech gimmick, but an adaptive AI security system built to detect, counter, and evolve against cyber threats in real time. I named it Argus. While my colleagues obsessed over minimalist dashboards and VC-pleasing demos, I worked in silence. Brick by brick, algorithm by algorithm, I built something alive. An AI that could learn from attacks, outmaneuver intrusions, and protect networks like no other. But I wasn't foolish. I'd seen too many engineers have their work stolen, buried, or resold, so I embedded a hidden verification sequence. A digital signature, dormant unless very specific conditions were met. 2 months ago, Virion's new CEO, Max Dresden, called me into his corner office. Marcus, he sighed, not even looking up. We're shifting direction. The board wants lifestyle AI, not defense-grade systems. Your project is done. I tried to explain. He cut me off. We've already sold the code to a private buyer, and we're letting you go. I signed the paperwork, let them think they won. What Max didn't know was that Argus wasn't finished. It was just waiting. And tonight, right as their systems ran a scheduled update, Argus would wake and announce its true creator. You should have gone into sales, Marcus, Reed sneered from the patio, grinning like he'd won something. I smirked, just as my phone vibrated. Breaking. Former Virion engineer tied to revolutionary AI exposed. Chloe raised an eyebrow. Job offer? Not quite, I said, tucking my phone away. Evan snorted. Pretty sure the diner's still hiring dishwashers. I looked up. Better save me a seat then. 6:05 p.m. Mountain Time. Somewhere in downtown Phoenix, inside Virion Dynamics' sleek steel and glass HQ, Max Dresden was probably rehearsing his Monday morning media statement, the one where he'd bask in the spotlight of Argus, the crown jewel of their innovation pivot. The same Max Dresden who once told me, real leaders don't write code, they buy it. The same Max Dresden who sold my life's work without flinching. The same Max Dresden who, in about 60 seconds, would find out what happens when you dismiss the so-called obsolete engineer. Actually, I said, raising my voice above the soft hum of jazz and clinking glasses, why don't we all check our phones? Things are about to get newsworthy. Reed scoffed. Chloe rolled her eyes. Across the patio, Trevor, the youngest of the Barrett cousins, barely 26 and already unbearably smug, snorted. What's this? Some revenge app launch? I didn't answer. I just looked down. 6:06 p.m. My phone buzzed first, then Chloe's, then Reed's. One by one, the yard filled with startled tones. Notification banners lit up like fireworks across every screen. Rion Dynamics stock suspended amidst code authorship scandal. Reed's grin vanished. Chloe's wineglass tilted in her hand. Trevor cursed under his breath. What the hell is this? He asked, voice cracking. I took a long sip from my glass and smiled. Oh, just a harmless little system update, I said. Argus came with let's call it a digital truth serum. Nor alerts popped up. DOD freezes $1.3 billion cents. Deal pending investigation. Former lead engineer claims ownership of breakthrough AI. Trevor stepped forward, pale now. Marcus, what did you do? I set my glass down, pulled out the beat-up laptop I never let go of. Want a demo? I asked. You all love demos, right? They leaned in, silent. I logged into a secure feed showing Argus's verification protocol in motion. Lines of code streamed down the screen. Timestamps, cryptographic markers, digital footprints, all tracing the AI's core framework directly back to me. 5 years, 2 months, 19 days, every line of logic, every sleepless night. All of it. Mine. I kept my tone steady, even as adrenaline surged. That's how long I spent building Argus. 5 years. Nights, weekends, holidays, while Max Dresden and his so-called visionaries strutted across stages, sipping cocktails at innovation summits, bragging about tech they didn't even understand. Across the patio, Aunt Helen rose, and Chloe's mother gasped as her phone buzzed again. Fear on Dynamics under federal scrutiny for AI ownership fraud. But they fired you, Trevor stammered, his earlier arrogance melting. Didn't they own everything you did? I turned my laptop toward them and pulled up a second window. Actually, no. I opened an email thread. Max Dresden's breezy approval to experiment with prototype code on their sandbox server. Dated, signed, stamped. You see, Argus was never a Varian initiative. I built it on my own time, on my own machines. The only reason it ever touched their system was because I asked, and he signed off. When they sold it to the defense sector without attribution, they activated the trigger, a passive watchdog that recorded every shady move, every edit, every leak, and waited for the right moment to speak. Reed leaned closer, his bravado gone, replaced with dawning dread. So that billion-dollar contract? Built on stolen tech, I confirmed. Max Dresden pitched a system he didn't build, didn't understand, and now? I held up my phone. Incoming call, Max Dresden. I declined. But that's not even the best part, I said, tapping one last time. A window opened, a folder labeled Legal Documentation. Inside, 17 patent certificates, all officially filed under my name, each one covering the core mechanics of Argus. Chloe's real estate polish faded, but Jessica's legal brain snapped to life. Wait, you mean Virion doesn't actually own any of it? I nodded slowly. Every algorithm, every self-healing firewall, every adaptive learning layer they pitched to the Department of Defense, it's all mine. And thanks to Max Dresden's arrogance and public lies, proving intellectual theft? A legal walk in the park. Trevor was still scrolling furiously, his mouth parted slightly. Dude, their stock's gonna crash the second the markets open. Probably, I said, taking another sip from my glass. Turns out fraud's not a great business model. More phones buzzed. Across the patio, the sound of unraveling reputations was unmistakable. Relatives paced, whispered, tried to hide their screens, but the damage was already done. Why wait? Reed finally managed to ask. Why wait this long? Why let them fire you if you had the upper hand? I thought about all the developers who were quietly erased, the engineers whose names were never in the press releases. Because, I said calmly, justice deserves an audience, and some people only learn when they lose everything they never actually built. My phone buzzed again. A new message preview lit up. From Sarah Martinez, CEO, Oracle. Subject, Argus. Impressive integrity layer. Let's discuss over dinner next week. I tilted my screen so Reed and Chloe could see it. Apparently, I said with a small grin, my guest coding skills still have a market. The sun dipped lower behind my aunt's sculpted hedges, draping the backyard in gold and silence. And somewhere in downtown Phoenix, Max Dresden was likely staring into the wreckage of his empire, wondering how it all slipped away. Tomorrow would bring headlines, lawsuits, subpoenas. But tonight belonged to the truth. I stood beneath the amber glow of patio lanterns, watching the expressions on my family's faces shift. It was like a slow-motion domino effect, one by one, the truth finally registering. That real value doesn't come from LinkedIn posts, leased Teslas, or inflated startup valuations. Sometimes it comes from silence, from patience, from being the one they all ignored. Sometimes it comes from writing code so elegant, so unbreakable, it didn't need applause, just timing. Reed's phone rang, probably a panicked LP. Chloe was furiously thumbing through contacts, already in damage control mode. Trevor just stood there, slack-jawed, the shiny world he idolized cracking in real time. I glanced at my watch. 6:30 p.m. Argus had done its job. The truth was out, and across Phoenix's glowing skyline, a very expensive lesson about underestimating builders, the quiet ones, had officially begun. 1 month later, I sat in Oracle's headquarters in Redwood Shores. Sarah Martinez stood confidently at the front of a sunlit boardroom, wrapping up her presentation. On the screen behind her, Argus was live, monitoring Oracle's global network, fending off real-time attacks with seamless efficiency. In just 4 weeks, Sarah said, Argus has neutralized over 3,200 threats, adapted to 19 new attack vectors, and reduced our response window by 87%. The room of skeptical execs was now leaning in, intrigued. You developed this entirely on your own? One board member asked. I nodded. Nights. Weekends. My machines. My capital. Not a single line of code belongs to Virion. Virion only gave me access to test servers, I added, pulling up the signed approval. And that came with full IP protection, on record. Respect followed, finally, on my terms. It was the same testing environment that had allowed me to fine-tune Argus's authentication core, the very system that exposed Max Dresden's theft to the world. Well then, Sarah Martinez said, smiling across the Oracle boardroom, I think we're all in agreement. Shall we make it official? The board vote was unanimous. By that evening, the news would hit every major outlet. Oracle secures exclusive rights to Argus for $4,200,000,000. And me? I'd be stepping in as Chief Technology Officer, overseeing Argus's global rollout, the same platform they once dismissed as too niche. My phone had been buzzing non-stop since the scandal broke. Journalists wanted interviews. Cybersecurity panels wanted keynote speakers. Congressional committees were requesting testimony on tech ownership fraud. But the messages that mattered most came from other developers. Hundreds of them. Tales of erased names, stolen patents, 20-hour coding days ending in someone else's press release. Argus had grown into more than a platform. It had become a movement, a quiet rebellion against a system built on silencing builders. As I stepped out of Oracle's San Francisco campus, my phone rang. I paused. Familiar number. Hey, Reed, I answered. His voice was low, tight. Marcus, I need your help. After the Virion fallout, Reed's venture capital firm was under a microscope. Investors were pulling out. His portfolio companies were collapsing. Developers were quitting in protest. They're leaving, he said. My team, my funding, everything. I didn't get it. Didn't get what? The real innovation doesn't come from taking credit, it comes from actually building, from respect. I thought of the engineers buried under NDAs, the ones who'd messaged me in the dark. I exhaled and gave a small nod to myself. Send me their names, I said. Oracle's scaling fast. We need developers who understand code and integrity. That evening, I drove past Virion Dynamics' once imposing campus. The lights were mostly out. The lobby sign had already been removed. Bankruptcy filings were underway. Investigations loomed. In the parking lot, a figure waved from under a street lamp. Leo Tran, a junior developer who had quietly stood by me during the chaos. Mr. Delaney, he called, grinning. Or should I say, Mr. CTO? I chuckled. Marcus is fine. And you? I asked, genuinely curious. Honestly, Leo said, his smile wide, never better. After Argus exposed Dresden, a bunch of us started talking, organizing. We've been documenting everything, every stolen commit, every misattributed innovation. He pulled out his phone and showed me a sleek new site. Developers from across the industry were uploading their stories. Names, timelines, code snippets, all crowdsourced and timestamped. We're calling it the Argus Pact, he said proudly. A framework for protecting developer rights. Think of it as an open-source defense system against corporate theft. I stared at the screen. What had begun in my home office was now a global movement. Send me the link, I said. Oracle's new ethics council might want to back this. My phone buzzed again, a new message. From Jessica Barrett. After the Virion meltdown, Google had launched a sweeping review into code attribution across all divisions. Jessica, once the rising legal star, had been asked to step down, pending investigation into misrepresentation on several past deals. The silence that followed felt different now. Not emptiness, but justice, finally catching up. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to smile without restraint. I get it now, her message read. Why you stayed in engineering instead of chasing titles. Real power doesn't come from taking credit. It comes from building something that lasts. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the old laptop on my desk, the same battered machine where Argus first came alive. Across continents, Argus now protected critical infrastructure, intercepted thousands of cyber attacks, and quietly safeguarded entire economies from collapse. But that wasn't its greatest impact. The real legacy? It was the awakening it ignited. Stronger IP protections, mandatory attribution protocols, and a growing developer rights movement demanding justice for those who actually built the digital future. My phone buzzed again. A message from Trevor, the same cousin who'd once cracked jokes about my career reset by the koi pond. Signed up for coding bootcamp. Starting next week, he wrote. Do you think you'd mentor me? I want to learn how to build something real. I smiled. I'd walked the long road, from overlooked programmer to industry transformer, and I knew exactly where he needed to begin. Lesson 1, I replied. Success isn't about who talks the loudest. It's about who puts in the work and protects what they create. Outside, the Phoenix skyline shimmered in the distance. Tomorrow, I'd walk into Oracle headquarters as their new chief technology officer. Next week, I'd testify before Congress on digital ownership and innovation ethics. And tonight, I opened a new blank file. A fresh project, a new challenge. Because the real power in tech doesn't come from headlines, job titles, or billion-dollar deals. It comes from the people willing to stay up late, solve the problems no one else wants to face, and write the code that holds everything together. Every function, every loop, every line, it all tells a story. And mine rewrote the rules. If you've made it this far, this isn't just about me. It's about every builder, every creator who's ever been talked over, written off, or stripped of credit. If you've ever had your work stolen or been told you weren't enough, I want to hear your story.